Let's start with that breaking news in Massachusetts. Lindsay Clancy's defense team rested its case. Now remember that Clancy admitted to killing her 3 children back in 2023. This trial is to determine if Clancy is criminally liable for the murders. Now, following the defense resting its case, prosecutors brought up their first rebuttal witness, another forensic psychiatrist. I want to go live now to CBS News legal contributor Rebecca Roiphe. Rebecca, what are your overall thoughts on the defense's case now that they've rested it?
I think the defense did a really good job, especially ending with those medical experts who testified specifically that she was operating under a mental disease or defect that made it such that she both could not understand that her actions were wrong and also could not control or conform to the law. I think they did a very good job coming on the heels of a lot of the other witnesses who testified to her distress and her growing sort of panic running up to the incident.
What do you expect from these closing arguments? What are you going to be looking for?
So I think we're going to see 2 very different narratives about what happened. I think the prosecution is going to focus very much on how well organized she was the day of, both before and afterwards. And they, planned this while her husband was away, sent him on specific errands, researched those errands. That goes both to the question of whether, this was in fact in some ways premeditated, but it also, if the jury believes it, is an indication that her mind was kind of organized on that day, not in this state of psychosis. I think on the other hand, you're going to see the defense present a very different story of a woman who was in extreme distress and was let down by the medical profession that kind of over-medicated her, created more problems than it was solving, and that this was mounting. And she was increasingly, calling for help, and that help was not coming to her, such that on the day that this happened, she really was in such a state that she could not in any way comprehend what she was doing, that it was wrong, and could not control her behavior in any meaningful way. And so I think these 2 different stories are going to be warring in those closing arguments. And what's going to matter are 2 things. One is the burden of proof, which is on the prosecution here to show that she had that mental capability. And secondly, which side is more compelling to this jury, or after hearing all of this testimony in this heart-wrenching case, which makes more sense with their kind of basic understanding of what happened here.
We should note right now the court is in recess. It's going to resume at 2 o'clock Eastern today. And today we heard from Dr. Ephraim Mack, who's a forensic psychiatrist, about his interactions with Lindsay Clancy. He was able to do a mental evaluation of her. Anything from his testimony today that stood out to you?
I mean, in some ways, these mental health experts are a little bit boring. And so, you could, I imagine the jury wasn't following every single word, but I think that what is going to be picked out again in that closing argument and emphasized, and maybe to some benefit for the prosecution, is that, he says he really did not see indications of psychosis. And so we really have a counter story to the defense expert who said he clearly saw that psychosis. She was operating under it, and it was affecting her in this way that made it such that she didn't have that criminal responsibility. Counter to that is this testimony of the prosecution experts, including the one who testified today, about how, yes, of course, this is a woman who had, some extreme mental illness, but that's not the question. The question is not whether she was mentally ill. It was what kind of mental illness did it qualify as this kind of, for this legal standard that's separate from actually whether or not she had some sort of diagnosis.
Rebecca Roiphe, thank you so much.